My disability is I'm a above knee amputee on my left hand side. That's been since 2016. Previous to that, I was a full-time wheelchair user for nearly 10 years because when I was 12 years old, I developed a condition called complex regional pain syndrome, which affected me pretty badly for nearly 10 years. And then that was what then eventually led to having an amputation. So I've always thought of amputation as a very positive thing. I thought I could get on with my life a lot better and be able to do a lot more things with having an amputation, and luckily that's worked out pretty well. The first time I got involved in any parasport was through swimming. Swimming was the only sport that I did previously that I could keep doing with a leg that didn't work, and I swam in the Scottish team for probably nearly 10 years. I guess post-amputation, it sort of opened up a new world of different sports I could try. I saw an advert that British Canoeing were looking for new talent athletes. I came down to Nottingham for an assessment and that went well, and shortly after that I got asked to move down to Nottingham full-time, and I've been training full-time with the British team since kind of the end of 2018. Snow sports wasn't maybe necessarily something that was on my radar. It's something I always thought I'd give a go, but then the more I thought about it, the more, I think anybody who knows anything about sports science knows how fit cross-country skiers are. And I thought if I can do a bit of that, surely that's going to make me a better athlete and hopefully improve my performances on the water in my boats. So I kind of spoke to my canoeing coach about it, kind of expecting him to say no, like what a daft idea. But luckily, he was just super, super supportive, and he said to me, either go all in and do absolutely everything you can, or just don't bother. Yeah, so I first got on snow in a tunnel, an indoor skiing tunnel in Germany. The first day, I fell over about 4 times. I crashed into one of the guys in the British team and I broke some equipment. So I thought they're not going to ask me back after this. My first time outside was in Norway in the start of November 2021. And yeah, I just loved that trip. And then I got invited to a trip to Canada in December, which I thought was mainly just a training trip for me. I ended up racing in a World Cup and I managed to hit the kind of criteria to qualify GB a spot for the Paralympics in Beijing. So the support services that I've had has been absolutely amazing. Literally, if I didn't have them, I wouldn't have been able to do one sport, never mind try and do 2 sports. Within canoeing, we train in a centralised programme, and we have access to strength conditioning, physio, psychology, performance lifestyle, and nutrition. A few athletes are lucky if they get one really good team around them, whereas I feel super lucky because I get 2 really good teams around me. My canoeing team really supported my Nordic skiing, and all the Nordic skiing team really supported they support my canoeing as well. And I can basically reach out to any of them really. The canoeing physio that I work with at the moment, Charlie, she's been on our team since probably the end of 2018, start of 2019. And for me, she's been a game changer, to be honest, because A, I 100% trust her, and B, Charlie's she's so keen to learn and keen to understand everything that she does for all of the athletes. And she really tried to get into the depths of our backstories, why we've got a disability, how long we've had a disability, how it's changed over the time, from when it started to where we are now. What we do outside of our sports that could potentially affect what we do within a day-to-day training environment. Yeah, I think she's just super, open to learn, and just ask the right questions to get to know us really well and get to know our bodies really well. our team, they have like weekly kind of meetings together where I'm not involved personally, but they sort of make sure that all the support services are on the same page, so the physio, the S&C coach, my coach, they're probably the three, and the psychologist as well. That's the ones that they really make sure that they're all on the same page within a weekly basis. It's if we're pushed too hard in the gym when we're supposed to be performing on the water, then that's going to end up, we're going to end up having a bit of a conflict, because if we're trying to perform in the water and the gym at the same time, it can lead to, difficulties and injuries and stuff. So yeah, they all work really closely together, which I think, just leads to a successful program. So we have like our macro, which is our full year. We kind of look at it at the start of the season. We normally know when the main competitions are, when selection is going to be, roughly within a few days, really. And then that's when we kind of start mapping everything out. One thing that I really enjoy is that I'm quite involved in making my program to a certain extent. It is a case of the coach does it, says it, and I do it, but I am involved in the kind of process as well, which I really enjoy. I do quite like to take a bit of ownership over my own program, but I also kind of have 100% trust in the coaches, and I'll just do whatever they tell me to do. I feel like now I'm probably a bit more confident to actually kind of speak up and say, look, I don't think this is working very well. Can we try something different, or whatever it may be? And yeah, I feel like the relationship I have with all of the staff is, they would take that on board as well. Another thing that we do quite well is we have like athlete reps as well. So if you do have an issue or a suggestion or problem or whatever it is, and you don't feel like you can go straight to any of the staff, you can go and speak to an athlete rep. So I think that's a really good way if you are kind of newer and maybe don't feel like you can go and speak to the staff, is actually just speak to the other athletes around you. For me personally, I don't have any issues with, discussing my disability, discussing the reason I've got my disability or the past. Within parasport, you have such a big range of A, disabilities, and B, the reason why athletes have got disabilities. So you could have somebody that was just born with a disability and they're totally fine with it, they just crack on. Or you could have somebody that had a really traumatic reason, which then led to a disability. You can speak about what disability you've got without having to speak too much about the reason that you've got it. So for example, if somebody's got a spinal injury, you don't necessarily need to know every single detail of why that person's got a spinal injury, but I think that practitioners do need to know how that spinal injury affects them within their sport, out with their sport. And I think it's asking sensitive questions and in the correct environment as well. So maybe asking in front of other teammates or, in front of a crowd is not the best place to do it, but potentially asking it, on a one-to-one basis could be, a more comfortable place for that person to speak about it and be a bit more open about it, so that the practitioner can understand as much as possible. Like, I think of working as not just improvements. I think of working as going to training every day and enjoying what I'm doing and having a good time with the team and having a laugh and just feeling like it's like easy. Like, that to me is as much of an improvement, if you like, as like black and white. 1 week I could lift X amount, at the end of the program I could now lift this amount. So yeah, I guess like for me, just actually, having fun is a very important part of what I do. I personally like to have kind of consistency within our staff team. You know, if somebody was leaving, so for example, if somebody within our canoeing team was leaving, so I think some people could be a bit thrown by that because you're so used to seeing the same person and have them for, you know, seeing them kind of 5-6 days a week for however many years. But I actually think, you know, communication is the biggest key to the next person being just as successful and having a good handover and things like that. So I do think it is important to have a consistent team around you, but I also don't think it's the end of the world if that changes and it's just communication that makes it a success to me. I think one thing that would really help within our setup at British Canoeing that we don't currently have would be our soft tissue therapist. Our physio, I think, is one of the kind of most worked members of a team. You know, you see it when you're away on trips. They can be treating first in the morning, they can be treating at 10 o'clock at night. It's a pretty full-on job. And I think a lot of the time people just need a bit of soft tissue. So actually, if we had that in, I think it would take a bit of load off the main physio, and also hopefully lead to actually less injuries, because if you're getting that regular treatment, then that can have, you know, a positive effect. Yeah, I think the performance lifestyle service has probably like changed slightly the longer I've been here. To start with, it was very much, you know, she helped me find accommodation for when I was moving down. They kind of made sure that I kind of had things outside of the sport as well as kind of succeeding at the sport, because, you know, I think sport, you do have to go all in sport, but I do think you need to have a healthy-ish balance as much as possible of it not just being your sport. Now that I've been down for like a period of time, the lifestyle's maybe changed slightly in that, you know, it might be ideas of more things for the future and how I can use, you know, maybe qualifications that I could do that could help more in the future rather than things for the now. Just to ask questions. I think just like their willingness to get to know every individual, like it doesn't go unnoticed, and I think it makes such a big difference for us as the athletes, but also for them as the practitioner, because the more they can understand how our disability affects not just our sport, but how we live our lives, the things that we need to do differently outside of sport. So I think it's just asking the right questions and not being afraid to ask questions. You know, we'll soon tell you if we don't want to talk about something or if we're happy to speak about something.